Hey, what's up, everybody? This is King Von Jr. Of course, what's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Victorious Ones podcast, the place where gaming meets comics, meets sports, meets movies, as well as inspiration. I'm your host, King Von Jr. You can follow me on social media, on Twitter, I still call it Twitter, on Twitter at 301 King Von Jr. You can follow the show's Twitter page at Victory Pod 1. I'm also on Instagram at Mr. King Von Jr. You can follow the show's Instagram page at Victorious Ones Podcast. I'm also a social media producer for Perfect Plex Talk Radio, hosted by a friend of the program, Mike Knox, on Mondays at 6 p.m. Of course, Mike is on hiatus for the holidays, and I will be pretty soon. And by the way, for those that don't know, I was at last time is now John Cena's final match on Saturday. That's kind of explains why I sound the way I sound right now. Got a little under the weather to me. I was feeling a little bit under the weather after it was over. So that's why I'm kind of working to recover. That's why I sound like this right now. Coming up, coming back from that. But thankfully I'm believing. I know that the guy heals anyway. So I'm gonna do my part in order to see that happen. But yeah, please bear with me for those who for those who happen to be listening right now. That's the reason why I sound the way I do. But yeah, so yeah, like I said, I was at I was at Cena's final match on Saturday night's main event here in Washington D.C. And it was a miracle for me. That I was even able to, I was even able to get in. And DC did not disappoint at all. Excuse me. DC did not disappoint at all whatsoever. And so it was nearly 20,000 fans in attendance. It's packed out of Capital One Arena downtown, and of course in Chinatown. And they had a fan fest, a superstore, you name it. And I got it. I got this the Cena shirt from there. I was like, you know what? I gotta get this. This is a finale, and not only that, but also got some other WWE merchandise from online. Get some of that rest of the Christmas shopping out the way. But yeah, before I proceed any further with that, first and foremost, of course, spoiler alert ahead of time. I know I give the birthday shout outs at the end of the show, but this was a monumental birthday because that very same day, music, not music, but movie and comedy, icon and legend Dick Van Dyke officially turned 100. So celebration for him. Like I said, congratulations on an amazing, on an amazing milestone. And so, so like I said, that's the high note. But unfortunately, things went on a sour note because the very next day, of course, legendary director and actor Rob Reiner, and his wife were tragically killed over the weekend at the hands of their son. It was a horrific, situation. Of course, my thoughts and prayers go out to the rest of that family. I never wish down anybody. And Rob Reiner, people talk about allies this and allies that. He definitely put his money where where his mouth was. Whether it was, like the portrayal of his character Meathead on All in the Family, to the films that he directed, the causes that he was about, and just the voice that he had, the platform that he used to promote change. He's definitely, an absolute giant when it comes to movies, when it comes to social activism. Like I said, for him to make the transition from TV to to movies, similar to Ron Howard, that's remarkable. His body of work speaks for itself. Whether it's from Spinal Tap, was Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, he even did Misery, even A Few Good Men. You know what I mean? Like, his catalog is far and wide, speaks for itself. And yeah, so like I said, he will be greatly missed. A tremendous loss, a tragic loss, rather. But yeah, but pretty much that, and like I said, also I'm gonna go. Like I said, the main thing. My fault. Like I said, my main topic is going to be about Saturday's main event, the aftermath of it. In terms of, like I said, of course, I know a lot of people felt some type of way about the way it ended, or also, just about the way Cena's retirement was booked. If anything, I would say that was the bigger underlying issue with that, was the way that this farewell tour was presented. Because Cena was on, he was on Bill Simmons' podcast, I believe, where he mentioned that, he wanted to do a schedule of over 200 days, like 220 days. But WWE and TKO slashed it down to 36. So that's why he only had so many dates. So that's why he only made so many appearances. And that's why he had to make the most out of it. Because if it were up to VKM, this would have been John Cena year. All, pretty much, all year round. And, like I said, a red carpet rollout, you name it. Cena would have not only had, the last time was now tournament, but he would have interacted. He would have had more interactions with the people in the tournament, including especially Gunther. So I will say the main high points for that, were number one, him breaking Ric Flair's record. Even with the heel turn, like I said, that's what I flew to Vegas for, to see him break that record, go to 17. That, and also becoming a Grand Slam champion. So you break a record and become a Grand Slam champion, you are making your case as the GOAT even more. And also to have his last match here in Washington, D.C. Come on now, Wild from Sunset. So yeah, like I said, as far as that's concerned, I definitely can't even imagine how I sound on the playback. But yeah, like I said, the show must go on. It's gonna be the last episode of the year. So everyone enjoy the holidays next week. But yeah, like I said, of course, like I said, I'm gonna get into that in a minute. But I'm going to do my recap of the NFL Week 15. We saw that the Falcons defeated the Buccaneers on Thursday Night Football 29-28. On Sunday, the Ravens blew out the Bengals 24-0. The Eagles blew out the Raiders 31-0. The Texans crushed the Cardinals 40-20. The Chargers defeated the Chiefs 16-13. Not Kansas City out of playoff contention. The Buffalo Bills defeated the New England Patriots 35-31. Jacksonville Jaguars destroyed the Jets 48-20. Washington defeats the Giants 29-21. The Chicago Bears defeat the Browns 31-3. The Saints defeat the Panthers 20-17. The Rams defeat the Lions 41-34. Excuse me. The Seahawks fight through this. Take my time. The Seahawks defeat the Colts 18-16. The Broncos defeat the Packers 34-26. Great game. Primetime football. The Niners defeat the Titans 37-24. Sadly, the Vikings defeat the Cowboys 34-26. Dallas is also eliminated from contention. And Monday night, of course, that was Sunday Night Football for the Vikings defeat the Cowboys. In the Monday Night Football, we see the Steelers defeat the Dolphins 28-15. So that is the recap of Week 15. And I know for Christmas, actually, I'm jumping the gun. Like I said, it's gonna be good. Of course, this Sunday is gonna be Cowboys and Chargers. Well, Christmas Day is gonna be the Cowboys in Washington for Netflix, by the way, 1:00 game. But yeah, that right there is a recap of the NFL and by the way, in NBA news, also basketball news. I'm going to say, forgot to say last week. Congratulations to Asia Wilson for winning Times Athlete of the Year award. In other basketball news, the Knicks have won with the in-season tournament cup champions. Their first championship in 52 years, whatever. As they defeat the San Antonio Spurs. And I also want to send my thoughts and prayers and condolences to Victor Wembanyama. Wemby lost his grandmother. So yeah, like I said, my thoughts and prayers and condolences for them. So, but yeah, of course, moving on to this thing called wrestling, pretty much. So what I'm going to do is start going to SmackDown, even though it's really not that much. It's just a go home show, right before Saturday night's main event, which is the main event anyway. The main thing to see. As we saw that, of course, as we saw Cody Rhodes have a massive problem on his hands, as Rhodes got his first up close look at NXT champion Oba Femi and their match at Saturday night's main event, which coincided with John Cena's last match. And Cody's lingering issues with Drew McIntyre were put on hold as he prepared for Oba, the ruler, the champion versus champion match. It was part of Cena's request. It was part of John Cena's request to shine light on tomorrow's superstars by giving NXT talent a major showcase. So, even on his way out, John Cena wanted to find a way to give back and to, pass the torch to the next generation by making sure that they were highlighted the night they had his last match. So when you look at the card, that card was filled with nothing but NXT talent. From Oba Femi, Sol Ruka, Javon Evans, and Leon Slater. I know Cena definitely had a huge hand in that to make sure that the NXT future was showcased as he was on his way out. So I will say that. Then like I said, of course, we saw Nick Aldis kicked off the show. He claimed he was having a hard time reinstating Drew McIntyre after suspending him before Survivor Series. And the simple reason was because McIntyre refused to return his calls. And so instead, Drew's attorney sent Nick Aldis a letter claiming SmackDown was an unsafe work environment, whatever. And so of course, Cody, still on the lookout, tore up that letter. And also other news, we saw Damian Priest and Rhea Ripley reunited as they defeated Aleister Black and Zelina Vega by way of pinfall after Ripley hit Vega with the Riptide. And then, of course, we have the United States Championship. Ilya Dragunov defeated Tommaso Ciampa by way of pinfall with a backfolding press. After the match, Carmelo Hayes rescued Dragunov from a DIY beatdown. So they reunited. Respectful rivals. And then we have celebrities that gave shout-outs to John Cena in the montage video ahead of his retirement match. And they show those videos Saturday as well. Celebrities far and wide from the likes, Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Jimmy Kimmel, Jimmy Fallon, whoever it is, you name it. The superstars themselves were all, congratulations, John Cena, on his retirement. So yeah, that's what it was. So Sikoa and MFTs issued wire 6 in the morning, saying they were coming for the WWE tag team titles. Lash Legend defeated Alexa Bliss with the Lash extension. Javon Evans defeated Miz with the pinfall, by way of pinfall of the OG Cutter. and Jade Cargill laid out Michin twice, once backstage and once in the ring. So not much else to write home about for SmackDown. Not much to talk about with that. Like I said, excuse the voice, my fault, but like I said, just gonna push through it, fight through it. Yeah, so but like I said, as far as that's concerned, next up is gonna be Saturday night's main event. As I said before, I was there among nearly 20,000 fans in attendance. And of course, Saturday night's main event, we had Joe Tessitore, Wade Barrett, Michael Cole, and Jesse the Body Ventura. He's a favorite when it comes to this Saturday night main event revamp. You know what I mean? And for good reason. So I greatly appreciate for that them constantly bringing them back. So with that being said, as far as the card, of course, like I said, all throughout the night, they're paying tributes to John Cena, the Make-A-Wish, testimonials and everything like that, and just to show what type of superhero this dude really is, and there's just a huge void that's going to be left when since Cena's not going to be around anymore. He may come back for a cameo appearance as a WWE ambassador. At least that much as far as that's concerned. When it comes to his in-ring career, he officially put his shoes down, walked away, and said, "It is over. Finn, it is done." End scene. Right? It's pretty much what it was. Not pretty much, it's really what it was. But like I said, starting off great as far as the match. We had Oba Femi versus Cody Rhodes. Loved it. Just to see Oba on display. I jokingly call him, M'Baku Femi. This dude pretty much has the strength of the Black Panther anyway. And there was somebody online who said that Oba Femi is all three New Day members fused into one. And I can't even unsee that now. I really can't. As you think about it, it does make sense. If all three of them were put together and fused together, like DBZ or Voltron or something like that, they become Oba Femi. Like I said, pretty much, like I said, if the New Day form together like Voltron, they'll be Oba Femi. That it makes sense. But like I said, if you look at the way he wrestles, his skill set, his athleticism, his power, his size, all that rolled into one. I mean, he is the alpha male, the ruler. You know what I mean? If Gunther ain't gonna retire, if Gunther's not gonna retire Brock, I would have Oba. I would have Oba do it. I have Oba Femi do it. So as far as that's concerned, like I said, the match was very solid, pretty nice. At first, I thought Cody was gonna put Oba away, with the Cody cutter, whatever. But even though Oba, was more than putting, Cody up against the ropes, pretty much giving him a run for his money as he should, right? There's a part of me that actually wanted, that was actually looking for Oba to win, but of course, Drew McIntyre comes in, the hater that he is, and the ref, calls for a DQ, and there are fans who wanted the match to resume, wanted the match to continue, but unfortunately it didn't, so yeah, that's what it was. Next up, I think this that'd be my personal favorite. Probably a match of the night was Sol Ruka versus Zarya. And when I tell you that Sol Ruka is built different, I mean not Zarya, Sol Ruka versus Bayley, my fault. Sol Ruka versus Bayley. When I tell you that Sol Ruka is built different in that ring, she absolutely is. And I'm glad that the main roster audience can see that for themselves, you know, in front of a larger, mainstream audience. And I'm glad they were able to see Obafemi showcase. I'm glad they're able to see Soruka showcase. And, of course, Soruka ends up winning with the roll up. I wish she would have won with Soul Snatcher, but either way, it's definitely, a much needed win for her to really elevate her stock. It meant more for her than it meant for Bayley, because Bayley's already a legend. Bayley's already, Grand Slam, legendary, women's wrestler, future Hall of Famer, you name it. Bayley's ironclad, Hall of Fame resume locked in. But for Soruka, what's up? Everybody was doing this, it's like because Soul's a surfer, So when she won, all going on like this, I was like, man, and I was happy for her. I was happy for her. So like I said, that match, like I said, it was pretty special. I think that, like I said, the only thing I would have changed would have been for Soul to win with a Soul Snatcher, because that's her RKO. You never know when that thing's gonna come. It's like a backflip, backflip RKO thing. I said, well then, in between, we also have, like we also had a Miz, of course, crying about not being in the main, not being on the card, not having a last match with Cena, and remind everybody that he was the one that beat Cena at WrestleMania 27 in the main event. That's Miz's greatest claim to fame. Shout out to the Miz, being the soldier that you are, continuing the match even with a concussion. Miz has all the respect in the world for me, and his comic relief as well. And so, so then, of course, Cena's, hero, fan, R-Truth, or R Cena, comes out, and he pretty much, just steps up to Miz, and all of a sudden, all of a sudden mentions, someone mentioned Joe Hendry's name, and all of a sudden you hear say his name, he appears. Hendry comes out, and then ends up having a short match, a squash match where Hendry defeats Miz, and then because it was short on time, the tag team match was pretty much rushed. They still got what they need to get out of it. AJ Styles and Dragon Lee defend the titles against Javon Evans and Leon Slater, and it was great for Javon to get that exposure on the main roster. As I always like to say, if the 1-2-3 kid, were a YN, the YN version, he'd be Javon Evans. A taller black version of 1-2-3 kid. And like I said, if kid was 6'4", he'd be Javon Evans. But I would say Javon Evans has a higher upside than what 1-2-3 kid had, and that says a whole lot. 1-2-3 kid, later X-Pac, right? And Javon's even got an endorsement from X-Pac himself. But yeah, like I said, the match, could have been better. But I think for the second time, and AJ had a botch where he slipped on the rope, turnbuckle or something. But eventually ended up winning with the Styles Clash, and still have the titles, right? So your winners are still tag team champions, AJ and Dragon Lee, and and we all know that AJ's retirement is right around the corner itself, and more talks about that as well. Even during Cena's retirement night, there was more more talks swirling around AJ Styles as well. Everybody's looking at Gunther like, oh, AJ's next on your list, So yeah, so like I said, 2026 is going to be the year of AJ's retirement. And with the way he's going, I'm not even sure, and if he's even going to make it to Christmas next year. AJ might be done by SummerSlam, for all we know. Of course, shout out to Turnbuckle Talk for Black Wrestling last night. By the way, speaking of, shout out to Black Wrestling, as I ran to Fam and DDM on Saturday at Capital One for Cena's last match. I ran to Dr. D, and of course Brian H, and several other podcasters. They're more local, if you will. But yeah, I ain't gonna be here with you long with this. But last but not least, we have the main event: John Cena versus Gunther. And the story behind this, the storyline, the story that they tell is that this is John Cena's last match. John Cena is officially, doing his curtain call. He's officially, pulling the curtain. This is his time to officially say farewell. Finn, done. It is finished. It is over. It's swan song. And even though I knew that the ring general was going to win, but I was still happy to see John Cena one last time, as everybody else was. Even though this match had like 1,000 different chokeholds, and you could tell Cena was not the same guy as before. He's definitely slimmed down a whole lot. Doesn't move like he does before. He did bring out the 5-knuckle shuffle a few times. Everybody that you can't see me, you know what I mean? Stuff like that. At least an occasional AA, Avalanche AA. You would have thought there was a little, flash of brilliance here and there. But the ring general, Gunther, he's old school. He's a throwback. He neutralized Cena superpowers. He's something unlike anything else, and that says a lot considering who John Cena's dance partners were. John Cena's danced with the best of the best and the baddest of the bad, from Randy Orton to Edge to CM Punk, Batista, Triple H himself, Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? Roman Reigns, of course. Cena has a lineage of amazing rivals. But, all that has come to an end. Rock as well. Another one. Shawn Michaels. Like all these different Cena opponents that I'm thinking about. Have flashbacks of. Speaking of, Shawn Michaels was out there as well. Kurt Angle was in the front row. Haku, Booker T, Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens. Everybody, pretty much everybody except for Randy Orton, who's in Saudi Arabia somewhere. But like I said, it was definitely a star-studded, farewell. But just the way that Gunther, with his strength, with his technique, with his mastery of the ring general, his technical prowess, the way he can systematically break an opponent down. He put it on display against John Cena. I was thinking that Gunther was just going to finish him off with a powerbomb. But no. There was a point where Cena, showed that he was not going to give up. He was in earlier sleeper hold or chokehold. But then Gunther said, nah, just kept elbowing him. It puts him in the final sleeper. And Cena, with a smile on his face, stunned the whole world, shook up the world. Unbelievable. Unfreaking believable. How dare you? Our hero, our legend, our icon, our Superman goes down. Cena preached to everyone all around the world to never give up. Here he is, giving up for only the fourth time in his career. It's the first time, with the never give up, gimmick, whatever. But collectively, I saw a count. It was actually 4 times, that Cena gave up. But yeah, like I said, the first time was against Jericho. Another one was against Kurt Angle. Another one was tapped out to Voldemort. And then on Saturday against Gunther. So yeah. And the thing is, there was a lot of speculation, a lot of controversy surrounding, him tapping out. Question whether or not that's what he wanted to do. Because the thing is, the fans didn't want it. Apparently, that's something that you could speculate whether Cena wanted it, the company wanted it, and he just was like, all right, I'm gonna do just what y'all want me to do. Because Cena's always been a loyal soldier through and through. He's a consummate WWE soldier. Besides the Undertaker, you can't find anybody else as loyal to the Shield, to the brand, as John Cena. And for him, even though he can still call shots, but for him to, I'm gonna do the time-honored tradition, and I'm gonna lose. But the thing is, somebody was saying that, Cena giving up, he was giving up the WWE universe, giving up control, giving up, this world of wrestling that he's lived in for so long. He's giving all that up symbolically. I said, man, that's something to think about. And Bubba Ray even used the analogy of Obi-Wan Kenobi. Star Wars. When he was about to die, he looked at Luke with a smile on his face, accepting his fate. Right as Darth Vader wipes him out. And John Cena maybe it's a Force Ghost now, just like Obi. Cena did the same thing. He knew his time was up. His time is now. Last time is now. But it's the nature of the business. It's just like I said, you go out, lose on your way out to do honors, and like I said, there's a lot of controversy surrounding it, especially when you consider the details about it. The fact that Cena wanted a longer schedule, but this regime said, "No, we ain't doing that no more." They let him know right away, that we're gonna minimize you as much as we can to remind you that you are now a relic of the past. That's pretty much what it was, to reinforce that Cena is of the past and we're moving forward. Give him as much as we want to. And so, but at the same time, it's like, it was John's choice to close this book, to end this story. This is the final chapter of his story when it comes to wrestling, of his wrestling career. And so Cena already knew that, that this was going to be his swan song. That's why he did this. That's why he presented the idea of this tournament, to give a showcase to up-and-coming talent, to get the chance to face him in his final match, or is more so, like I said, a showcase of of what's currently on the roster, of the future and everything like that. Passing the baton, if you will. So initially, I wanted to see someone like Carmelo Hayes or Obafemi win it. I wanted to see Oba in the tournament altogether. Whatever, I digress. But I saw a video on Instagram that really explains it best as it pertains to this backlash with Gunther. And Cena's retirement and everything like that. How Gunther was being escorted by security out of the arena. Of course, after the match was over, and there were fans who were just acting crazy, threatening him, and calling him everything except for his God-given name. And, like I said, call him everything except for his God-given name, right? And they were just going overboard. Just doing the absolute most. Come on. And the thing is, on one end, yeah, Gunther's definitely getting old school nuclear heat. Absolutely. Absolutely. But, the fans are very fickle. Every day, the internet proves Daniel Bryan right. That the fans are fickle. And it's the same Daniel Bryan that they're quick to call the GOAT. And he's telling you to your face that y'all are fake. and that promo has aged continuously like wine. And Saturday was another example of it. Like, y'all doing way too much. But with that being said, initially, like I said, I wanted, other choices. I mean, even though Gunther was another one anyway. But the thing about it is that with the nature of the situation, and the reaction that they wanted to get, there was nobody else on, like I said, back to the, to paraphrase the video, the previous video, it makes sense because there's nobody else on the roster who has the type of strength, poise, dignity. I'm talking about, in terms of, mental strength, psychological strength, someone who could, really handle this weight, the weight of being a villain. You know what I mean? There's nobody else on that roster who could carry that load like that, who could take the heat and not be fazed by it and not have to crumble under the pressure of it. Who's not afraid of, the internet backlash and all that other type of stuff, who embrace it. There's nobody else in their roster but Gunther. I mean, Randy Orton's already beaten Cena multiple times, so we're not even counting him. Roman's already done it before, but in terms of immediately who they have, much more active on the roster, if you will, Gunther was the right choice to do it. I'm not saying that the other guys, are weak-minded or anything like that, but there's a certain, say, fortitude, if you will, that Gunther has, where he could take it. We could, look, where he could take the backlash, as they say, take a look and keep on ticking, right? So, like I said, Gunther was the only one that was capable of doing that. And this is no different than any other call like this that's able to draw nuclear level heat. Even when it came to, I know it's a very touching one, even the Montreal Survivor Series, Shawn Michaels. You know, he was Vince's hired gun. You know, you look at WrestleMania 24, but Shawn Michaels once again. You know, HBK this time, he defeats Ric Flair, retires the Nature Boy. You know, he was able to take, you know, that hate, that backlash, you know, and just carry it on his shoulders like a soldier. You know, because Vince knew that he was capable of doing it. Because you know, clearly he's proven to Vince before that he can handle that he can handle major heat. You know what I mean? So yeah, like I said, Shawn Michaels, HBK defeating Flair, and the biggest one, especially look at Brock Lesnar breaking Undertaker's streak. There was nobody else in that position that could do that. Nobody else in that position that was believable enough to break the streak and to handle what came with it. To handle, you know, the online vitriol, to handle the vitriol at the arena. Brock was the guy to do it. Personally, I wish Taker would have retired 20-0 at WrestleMania 28 and rode off into the sunset. But because that didn't happen, who else was better to do it than Lesnar? And Lesnar clearly shows he's not fazed by none of that stuff. Even when Roman beat Taker 3 years later, and and of course the next night on Raw, he says, "This is my yard now," and they booed him out the building. He soaked it in, and seeds were being planted from then to eventually who he would become 3 years later. So even though the impact didn't immediately hit right away with Roman, but a seed was planted for sure. And look at the aftermath later down the line. All I'm saying is that when it came to that, especially when it came to, when it came to those situations, the ones who were the winners, their trajectory went up, you know. And Gunther's no different. You know, Gunther can hold his head high. Gunther's embracing it right now online. Oh, he's soaking it in. He is talking trash online. I mean, he is in his element. Even on Monday, he said, "I made John Cena tap like a little." I said, "Whoa, sorry now. All right now, live your best life, man. Live your best life. I ain't mad at it. I ain't mad at all." You know, and so and the thing is, to take on that assignment to retire John Cena, a beloved icon in wrestling, that is not a lightweight thing to do. You know, I know there are people who wish they had, wish they had the honor to be in the ring with Cena. But when you're on assignment to defeat him and to get that type of heat, that's not something everybody's ready to sign up for. You know, so Gunther, you know what I mean? He is maximizing it. And the thing is, everybody's, criticizing about his age, in his upper 30s. But the thing about it is that Gunther's style of wrestling is meant for longevity. So at the most, he's got another 10 years left in him. So Gunther's going to be fine. You know what I mean? So in the instance, it could have been, passing a baton. Yeah, sure. But I think it was eventually was going to be one of those seismic events of, it's like, where you are when it happened. It's like when Brock ended the streak. I know where I was when that happened. I was at a WrestleMania party at a friend's house, over at a friend's house when it happened. And it was absolute silence. As soon as the ref counted three, as soon as the ref's hand, hit the mat for the third time, it was more quiet than a library. The impact was worth it. And speaking of being silent, I noticed that a lot of these rock conspiracy theorists went silent. A lot of these people who were speculating the Edge and Batista was going to be there, they went silent. You see this? Silence. And I love it. I was talking to a fan on Saturday. He swore that The Rock was going to be there, the Edge was going to be there, Batista, da da da. He swore that. I was like, all right. I said, all right, you want to believe it? I was in myself, all right, you believe it, whatever. That's you. But I was, telling him, was like, you know what? It'd be cool, but it's still business at the end of the day. So it's not gonna be as realistic. But he's like, yeah, no. Seen his last match. Like, all right, whatever, dude. All right, cool. Yeah, I just walked away. Sometimes you have to let people talk themselves in circles and not having to argue with them. Plus, it's too cold outside. That's why I sound like the way I do now. But yeah, like I said, Cena's last match, the event itself was, spectacular. It brought a lot of money to DC, events DC. You know what I mean? So who knows? Somewhere in the future, we could be seeing WrestleMania in DC. Especially with that new stadium that they're gonna be building in 2030. I look forward to it. Hopefully TKO will be gone by then. And the prices could go back down. But yeah, pretty much that's what it is. And as far as do a little, little recap of Monday Night Raw, we found out that Austin Theory was the masked man the whole time, and he came back with a haircut. Looked like a Justin Timberlake when he did Future Sex Love Sounds or something. That the one where he had the song "Sexy Back." Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, he pretty much looked like Justin Timberlake at that point. Via 2002, 2003, whatever. Yeah. So, but yeah, pretty much the biggest mystery came to a close on Monday. When Austin Theory revealed himself to be the masked man who aided the Vision in recent weeks, especially at War Games. It was him. And Theory helped the team of Braun Breaker, Bronson Reed, Logan Paul, Drew McIntyre, Brock Lesnar win the War Games and Survivor Series. So we saw that, of course, Austin Theory, of course, played a big part, especially when it came to Logan Paul. Well, actually, no, rather, of course, Logan Paul defeated Rey Mysterio as Theory revealed himself to be the masked man with the Superstar Splash. And so, yes, so of course, that's what it was. And in other news, starting off, let me backtrack. Gunther opened up Raw with a short promo reminding the fans that he made John Cena tap out like a little. He left the ring but came back twice to pose, in and around the ring before repeating the same line again. Backstage, we saw that Gunther was confronted by Tozawa, Otis, and R-Truth, and then of course, Adam Pearce told me he was done for the night. And as Gunther was driving off, he did the "You Can't See Me," to AJ Styles. Then the Usos defeated New Day by pinfall after hitting the one deal Kofi. The Kabuki Warriors versus Rhea and Io was set for the first Raw of 2026 with the Women's Tag Team Championships on the line. Later in the show, we saw the Kabuki Warriors attack, of course, Rhea and Io with Asuka spraying Rhea with the mist early on. Of course, Ripley going to demand that Pierce look a match pitting her against Asuka next week. And with the way Kyrie hit the insane elbow, I said, man, all right now, you know. And of course, for the women's Intercontinental Championship, Maxine Dupri defeated Ivy Nile with submission based on ankle lock. And for the Women's World Championship, we have Stephanie Vauquier defeat Raquel Rodriguez by disqualification after interference from Nikki Bella. And Nikki Bella took out her frustration. They took out Raquel, of course, and just threw her right into the stairs, and just left a massive Tom and Jerry looking knot on Raquel's head. I said, man, and then eventually Nikki hit Stephanie with a rack attack, and Stephanie's gonna, retain the title. But yeah, pretty much, that's, I mean, I was gonna go through NXT, but I'm not really feeling it right now. Back another time. But yeah, that's pretty much it. And before I go, and also one more thing, Mick Foley has also announced his departure from WWE because of their affiliation and partnership with this current Trump administration, number 47. And, Foley is standing 10 toes down, and he's not going to, fake it and shake it no more. You know what I mean? And he's a man of his word. Salute to him. If that's what it takes these days, go for it. You know what I mean? And now it's gotten to the point where everybody has to draw a line. Especially when politics are involved. Politics are involved, including wrestling. And there are many of us in the community, some people that I know of as well, myself included, where we have to make decisions ourselves and draw certain lines, and with the way this TKO partnership is and their affiliation with this administration, clearly they're letting us know how they feel about us as fans, to the point where they're, overpricing these tickets and, and outpricing, the traditional fans like myself. So they're clearly, showing their hand in this era right now. So further notice, when it comes to these events, it looks like I'm going to retire my belt like a jersey in the rafters. So if this is my last event for a while, who knows? Then so be it. But yeah, that's pretty much it right there. And before I go, I'd like to give birthday shout outs, some pretty big shout outs. As I said, Dick Van Dyke turned 100 on December 13th. On that same day, Jamie Foxx turned 58. December 14th, the Junkyard Dog will turn 73. On December 15th, Byron Cage, and of course, Byron Cage turned 63. December 15th. December 16th, of course, Refrigerator Perry turned 63 as well. December 17th, today, Ernie Hudson turns 80. Of course, Ghostbusters legend Ernie Hudson turns 80. December 18th, Stone Cold Steve Austin turns 61. Trish Stratus turns 50. Of course, Maureen Ume from Fox 5. She has a birthday the same day. Christina Aguilera turns 45. Brad Pitt turns 62. Charles Oakley turns 62. RVD turns 55. And Cicely Tyson, of course, would have turned 101. And Maurice White from Earth, Wind & Fire would have turned 84. And Warren Sapp turns 53. And that's it for the birthdays. And before I go, I would like to give a word of wisdom, is that, of course, always remember whatever you're going through, God permitted it because he has a greater plan for your life. And God calls us to love those who don't agree with us, but to still preach the gospel, And of course, we serve a God who gives us another chance and doesn't give us what we deserve. And then we're to show compassion towards those who disagree with us. And so that's it. And my word of wisdom, and that's my word of wisdom. And always remember that you are victorious because greater is he that is in you than he that is in the world. When you put God in first place, you don't have to worry about being in last place. Of course, please make sure to listen to my podcast on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, or anywhere else that you download podcasts. Thank you very much. And of course, you can also watch by way of YouTube, youtube.com/Von Resper Jr. Please make sure to like and subscribe for more content. Apologies for my voice. But like I said, of course, may you all have a very Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And may this day be the very best day of your life.